Hello there, this is Ty the Movie Guy, and I know D23 was weeks ago, so I'm definitely late to the party, but today we're going to talk about all the announcements from D23, and I'm going to categorize them as the good, the bad, and the meh.
Why, you son of a great power comes great responsibility.
My brother and a
You do this all day.
I am Iron Man.
Why so serious?
I am the Comeback, the destroyer of worlds.
And since there's so much stuff from this year, I wrote it all down in this book to help me keep track. So if you see me looking down during the video, it is just because I'm looking back at my notes, basically. And since there's so much to talk about, instead of individual video segments for each project, I'm gonna go by franchise. So we're gonna start with Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, Marvel, and miscellaneous. So with that said, let's start with Disney. And starting with Disney, we're first gonna talk about the live action Stitch movie. And if you know me, you know I absolutely hate these live action remakes just because they seem so cheap and lifeless and like lacking creativity whatsoever, because it's basically the same story just made with live action, and it's just made to bank off of our nostalgia. And with the live action Stitch movie, I feel like it's kind of actually working with me because Stitch is definitely a Disney movie I was really into as a kid. So compared to most of the live action remakes, it has a step up just because I actually really liked Stitch as a kid, opposed to the more Disney princess stuff. But yeah, as a kid, I did like Stitch, so I have a bit more of an attachment to this movie. So I'm just gonna put it in meh, because yeah, I hate the live action remakes, but I did have a fond memory of Stitch as a kid. So out of the live action remakes from this year, this one is definitely the most interesting just because of my nostalgia to Stitch. And then we have live action Snow White. And with this one, I don't really have any connection to Snow White. And once again, live action remakes suck. So this one is definitely gonna be bad. And also, it just has some really weird behind the scenes stuff where I'm totally for like changing the race of characters and stuff. Like I didn't mind that at all with Ariel, but I feel like Snow White, her name comes from like her skin tone. So casting like a Latina actress is a little bit questionable, where like her name is directly connected to her race is a little weird. And then with the dwarves, the one chance they have to be progressive, they could easily just cast little people as the dwarves, but then they go with CGI instead, which is really weird. I think it's little people in mocap playing the dwarves, hopefully, but why don't you just like slap some little hats and beards on them to play the actual dwarves? So that's also really weird. So like they're trying to be progressive one way, which didn't really work, when they had like a way easier approach with the dwarves. So it's just really confusing. And yeah, I don't have a connection to Snow White, and I hate these live action remakes. So yeah, definitely in the bad category. And then our last live action remake, we have the Mufasa movie, and this one is also definitely going in the bad category just because the original live action Lion King is definitely one of the worst live action remakes, just because it just feels like a nature documentary. And lots of people have said before, you can't really like emote these live action animals. You can't really see their feelings, so it just feels like a live action documentary. And it's just like beat for beat of the original movie, but just way less interesting. And so making a prequel of that movie I'm glad it's a unique story, but also just these live action remakes give a terrible taste in my mouth. And like, I definitely would have preferred if they just did a prequel to the original Lion King. But considering that movie's 30 years old, it's definitely weird to make a prequel of a 30-year-old movie, but it's also weird to make a prequel of such a terrible movie. So all in all, it just shouldn't have been made. Like the whole Mufasa thing, being with Scar and seeing them like start to hate each other, that could be interesting, but just, I hate these live action remakes. So yeah, it's definitely going in the bad category. And then out of the live action remakes, we have Moana 2. And we got a trailer for Moana 2 in D23, and it's looked fine. Like I do really like the original Moana, but just with this one, the trailer didn't really show anything new and unique and interesting for me to get really hyped. Like all I really got out of the trailer was Moana has a little sister now. Like, okay, cool. Like that's not enough to really get me hyped for this movie. So I'll definitely check it out. like all of these things, but so I could definitely like it a lot more once I actually see it. But as of now, just the trailer didn't really get me hyped for anything really new. And then next we got Zootopia 2, and Zootopia 1 was just like a fine movie that kind of, you know, I watched it and I haven't really thought of it since then. It kind of had like a nice metaphor for racism that I found really interesting. So I'm hoping they have a new kind of deep message in the sequel. But once again, just I'm not too excited for it. It's just another sequel that, because Disney's they're really relying on sequels these days. So I'm not too excited. Kihei Kwan's playing a snake, so that's interesting. I like seeing Kihei Kwan a lot. I hope they don't cast him in too many things these days. Like, I don't know, I hope they don't do him too much. I hope he gets like a leading man role, but not too many of these just little side characters that they're throwing him in now. And so, yeah, Zootopia 2 is also going in the meh category. And then finally for Disney, we have Frozen 3. Frozen 1 definitely had a big impact on lots of people, specifically girls. And definitely when the first one came out, it had a big impact on like people my age. Like I was 9 in 2013, so I if I was a girl, I would have been like the perfect demographic. But for me, being a guy, I wasn't too into it. I was more into like the Lego movie and stuff at that time. But so yeah, I don't have the biggest connection with this franchise per se, just because I don't know, Disney princess stuff isn't my thing, especially now that I'm 20 years old. So I don't know, the first one made a lot of money and was pretty successful. The second one, I think, also made a ton of money, but definitely was worse. So I don't know, it makes sense that they're making a new one, but I'm just not that excited for it. So it is also going in the meh category. So all in all, Disney by itself is not looking very good right now. Next up, we're talking all about Pixar. So starting off Pixar, we are going to talk about Toy Story 5. And if you know me, you know Toy Story is my all-time favorite animated franchise. So even though I wasn't a huge fan of Toy Story 4, I am still super hyped for Toy Story 5 because I have hope that it will be as good as the first three. And so with the new announcements from D23, we got a bit of like what the plot's gonna be. And with the plot, it's about how Bonnie becomes like an iPad kid and like the toys have to deal with that, and how she's probably like less into playing with toys and everything. And then there's gonna be an army of Buzzes and they're gonna be evil. And so I think the whole iPad kid technology thing is a pretty decent plot, actually. It's like very relevant to today's time, just seeing like kids out in public on their iPads. Like me personally, I think that's a real problem. So I think that's gonna be really relevant today's world, and maybe hopefully make a change and maybe have parents realize what they're doing to their kids. But I don't want to get too much into all that. But I think, yeah, it is pretty relevant to today's time. But also, like years ago, I heard about this one fan theory about what if Toy Story 5 was about Andy having a kid, and then he wants to find his old toys to give to his kid. And then, you know, like towards the end of the movie, Andy sees Woody and then gives it to his kid. And just thinking about it gives me goosebumps. And ever since I heard that plot years ago, I've always wanted it. And that's like the only plot I want. Like any other thing just won't be as good as this one fan theory I heard of a while ago. So there's still a chance they could do this in the fifth movie. The whole iPad kid thing definitely isn't really pointing towards they're gonna do that, but there's still, I think, a chance. It's less of a chance, but there's still a chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
So I really hope they go down that path. I'm worried they won't, but either way, I just love this whole franchise. So anytime they make a new one, I'm gonna be super hyped. And fingers crossed they do that plot line. Please, I want to bawl my eyes out to an animated movie. Okay, so yeah, so with Toy Story 5, I'm definitely putting it in the good category just because of how much I love this franchise. And next up, we have Incredibles 3. And for Incredibles 3, with the first two Incredible movies, I do like the first one, and I like the second one a little less, but I know for most people, like on their Pixar rankings, like Incredibles is like really high up there. And for me, it's high up there, but not as much. So I just feel like I have a lesser connection to Incredibles than most people. So I'm excited, just not as much as most people, just because I was never into it as much as most people. But, you know, I think it's still interesting. And I really hope they age up the characters. I think that'd be pretty interesting if all the kids were like older, and, you know, make Jack older, and maybe have the parents like retire and it's mainly focused on the kids. I think that could be cool. So yeah, I want them to age up the whole family, because I think it'd be kind of interesting. And yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. But just because I'm not too much into Incredibles as most people, and this is just another thing where it really feels like Disney's just so worried about things being successful. They're really just banking off of sequels once again. So I'm gonna have to put it in the meh category for now, at least until we get like a trailer or whatever. And next up, we have Dream Productions, and this is gonna be I think it's a TV show based off of Inside Out. And when I watched the first two Inside Out movies, I never really saw the dream production place in the movies. I never like saw it and thought, hey, that would make a great TV show. Like, I never really thought of it like that. So I think it's a little bit unnecessary, but we literally know nothing about it. So maybe once we get a trailer, it will look really cool. But as of now, I don't really have a need for this at all. So it is also gonna go in the meh category. And next up, we have another TV show, Win or Lose. And this one's really interesting because it's one of the first ever Pixar TV shows. And it looks kind of fun. It's about like a baseball team, like a kid's baseball team. And that's kind of like a generic plot for Pixar. You know, Pixar usually does like really like wild and unique things. So doing a show about a baseball team doesn't really feel Pixar unique, but I'm sure they're gonna like have some sort of cool spin on it. And I just have like faith in Pixar in that way. So I think it could be pretty good, but as of now, it feels a little generic. So once again, it is gonna go in the meh category. And finally, for Pixar, we have Hoppers. And this is a brand new, unique Pixar movie. The only unique Pixar movie on this whole list. And from what I've heard, it's basically about a girl. Her mind is inside of a beaver, and she's trying to like help the beavers and become one with the beavers. And it gives off like Avatar vibes. It gives off Dancing with Wolves vibes, Last of the Samurai vibes, but in a Pixar setting. So I think it could be actually really interesting. I like new, unique Pixar ideas. I like beavers. I think they're cute. There was one promo art that they released, and just from that art, it looked pretty interesting. So yeah, I'm really for like unique movies that aren't just sequels. So I'm gonna actually put this one in the good category. And so that's it for Pixar. And for Star Wars, we only have two things to talk about. And starting off with Skeleton Crew. And this show has like a really weird kind of history to it, because at least for me, it felt like we've known about this for a while, but it took forever and ever and ever to actually like learn more about this show, until we finally got like some promo art a couple months ago, and then we finally got a trailer a couple weeks ago. And from the trailer, it has this weird suburban neighborhood style in the Star Wars that was pretty interesting. And then also it definitely has like a Goonies vibe with these kids looking for some treasure, which could be kind of interesting, but also kids starring in the lead, I'm not a huge fan of most of the time, so it could feel kind of childish. So I'm a little skeptical of that, but I'm also really excited for Jude Law as our lead adult and kind of lead actor. He's like the only actor from this that I actually know of. So I'm excited to see him in this Star Wars world. And it also has some ties to like the kind of Mandalorian and New Republic era TV shows that I've noticed. And also it has some connections to this weird 80s Disney ride called Captain EO with Michael Jackson. Like, some of the aliens from that little mini movie are in this trailer. So like, people are speculating, is this actually going to be connected to that really weird niche 80s thing, or are they just little Easter eggs? So I'm kind of curious about that too. But all in all, I'm not too excited for this Goonies, Stranger Things, Star Wars vibe. So I'm going to put it in the meh category for now. And then our final Star Wars thing is The Mandalorian and Grogu. And I love the Mandalorian series. It's probably my favorite series of all time. Season 3 was definitely a misstep, but I'm really hopeful that they're gonna like go back to their roots with this movie. And, you know, hopefully with this movie, I know it was originally gonna be season 4, but then they like turned it into a movie. So I'm really hoping it has like a really great plot that warrants being a movie and not just like, I don't know, they randomly just turned season 4 into a movie because they thought they could like make more money off of ticket sales or whatever. But yeah, I really hope they have a really good story to tell and to tell it as a movie. And I also really hope this is like the last of The Mandalorian. I hope they don't do like a season 4 after this, because it'd just be weird to do season 1, season 2, season 3, movie, season 4. I think it just makes more sense to end it on this movie. So I'm really hoping for big things and big emotional scenes and stuff like this, and I'm really hoping for like an exciting closure to this Mandalorian saga, and also hopefully like little teases into the Heir to the Empire movie coming out a few years later. So all in all, because of my love for the Mandalorian and because they're turning season 4 into a movie, I'm really hoping they're going to make this super special. So it is definitely going in the good category. And now we gotta talk about Marvel, and this is easily the most projects out of this whole list, so buckle up, we got a lot to talk about. So starting with Agatha, the one that comes out just in a month from now. This show is, I don't know, it's from a time like years ago where Marvel and Disney, they were just obsessed with pumping out lots of Marvel stuff. And then they realized just recently, like a couple months ago, they're like, oh damn, that was actually a really bad idea. People won't just watch whatever we pump out. We gotta actually like make good content nowadays, and we should focus more on quality over quantity. And you can really see that with this year specifically, because all we got this year for movies was Deadpool and Wolverine. And so Agatha really feels like an afterthought of back when they were just pumping out stuff just for content's sake. And now this is like the last product of that, where after Agatha they're actually like gonna start doing quality over quantity. So yeah, Agatha just feels like they just threw it out there because she was popular in WandaVision, but I feel like she doesn't warrant her own show. Like, she was funny, she was a good villain, but not carrying an entire show good villain. So yeah, I'm gonna have to put her in the meh category. I'm only keeping her out of the bad category because I like the spooky vibe. It's pretty unique for Marvel. And I like the ties to Wanda. Like, her kids are going to be in this, so I'm curious how they're coming back. And then there's like stuff about Wanda in the trailer, like they discover her dead body and all that. And so this could be the show that brings her back. I'm definitely one of those people who definitely think she's coming back. So I'm curious how they're going to bring her back and if this show is going to be a part of that. So Agatha herself, pretty lame, but the Wanda stuff and her kids are actually pretty interesting. So it's going to go in the meh category. And next up, we have Captain America, Brave New World. And Captain America is probably my favorite character of all time. I'm talking about Steve Rogers specifically. And the original Captain America trilogy are like one of the best trilogies of all time, and definitely the best trilogy of the MCU. So now that we have Sam Wilson, Captain America, I'm excited to see him carry on the mantle, and I really hope this movie does good just because of its connection to the first 3 movies that I'm so fond of. And so yeah, I'm really excited for all that. I'm really excited to see Red Hulk. I'm really excited to see, like, if I feel like this movie is rumored to actually like start tying the characters together and get ready for Avengers. So I'm excited for all that, but then also at the same time, they're juggling a lot of stuff with this movie that might be too much. Like, you know, you got new Captain America, you got Red Hulk, you got the Celestials from Eternals, you got bringing together the team, you got Serpent Society, you got like so much stuff that it might be too much for this movie, which I'm a little bit worried about, but hopefully this movie can tackle all those subjects together. So as of now, I'm still putting it in the good category just because I like Sam Wilson taking on the Captain America role, and I love the previous Captain America movies, so I would actually be heartbroken if this doesn't live up to the previous Captain America movies. And also I love Harrison Ford. I forgot to mention him, of course. It sucked that the original Ross died, but out of all the actors they could have picked to recast Ross, I think Harrison Ford is probably the best pick just because he's one of my favorite actors of all time. And I'm actually really surprised he wanted to be in Marvel. Like, it's probably just for the money, but I'm still super excited to see one of my favorite actors in one of my favorite franchises. So for now, I'm gonna put it in the good category, but I'm also pretty nervous about this movie. And next up, we have Thunderbolts. And with Thunderbolts, I'm pretty excited for it because it feels like Marvel's Suicide Squad, and it has a lot of characters from Phase 4 coming together. And this is like one of the only movies from Phase 4 that they were actually like teasing, having that one lady like going to US Agent, going to Yelena, and she was also in Black Panther, and like seeing her like become the Nick Fury of the Thunderbolts like showed me that, wow, they actually have like a plan during these phases, which it seems like they haven't had for a while now. So I'm actually excited that hopefully they've been scheming this up for a while. And yeah, I just think Marvel Suicide Squad is really interesting, and I'm excited to see these characters back. I like Bucky, I like Red Guardian, I like Yelena, I like US Agent. Taskmaster and Ghost I don't really care about as of the Nick Fury girl who assembled all of them. I don't know about her enough to be really interested in her, but yeah, I like most of the characters. I like that they've actually been planning this. I like Marvel Suicide Squad, so I'm gonna put this in the good category. And next up we have Fantastic Four. And I'm pretty excited for Fantastic Four as well because pretty much all the Fantastic Four movies haven't been too terribly good. I think I like the original two more than most people. And then Fan4stick is just terrible. Like, even watching it as a kid, I knew it was terrible. So I'm really hoping that this is like the first actually good Fantastic Four movie, and the MCU is gonna do it right. I know people are skeptical about the casting, specifically with Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, but me personally, I'm optimistic. I'm willing to give him a chance. We've only seen Pedro Pascal as like badass father figure, so I'm excited to see him as this like scientist superhero. I think he could do a good job. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for all the castings, all the villains they're introducing, and Galactus and all of that. And I think putting it in a different universe from the MCU is a little bit disappointing. I like, you know, the cameos from the multiverse, but I feel like if you're gonna make a new version of these characters and have them be like the main characters of the MCU, then they should actually be in the MCU, but obviously they're gonna get carried out over like at the end of the movie or whatever. So I'm not a huge fan of that, and I feel like since it's in the 60s, they could have just had them in the 60s and then have like a Captain America situation where they come back to the future. So I'm a little disappointed in that whole aspect, but once I watch the movie, I'll probably get over it. And then next up, we have Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. And this looks like a really interesting Spider-Man animated TV show. On one hand, I wish it was like based off of like Tom Holland in the MCU, because I think it'd just be cool to do little mini stories about him, just little, you know, stuff to add on to the character and show like niche villains and all that. But then also at the same time, I like the idea of being its own little pocket universe, so they can do whatever they want. They can, you know, like throw in Iron Man if they want, like even if he's dead, and they can throw in Daredevil and all of that stuff, and just kind of have nothing to really tie back to. They can just do whatever they want and be free with it. So part of me wants it to be connected, part of me doesn't want it to be connected, but all in all, I'm pretty excited for this because, you know, Tom Holland Spider-Man was a very unique Spider-Man with his whole like being an Avenger thing, and this show's gonna have like Avengers and stuff in it, but it's also gonna be very origin story-esque, so I'm excited for that aspect too. So all in all, this is gonna go in the good category. And next up, we have What If Season 3, also known as the final season of What If. And the first 2 seasons of What If could have been really cool, but were very hit or miss with the episodes. They were very like character swap stuff that I didn't really care for, and really focused on Peggy Carter a lot, and like focused on, they made new MCU characters like Kahori that I didn't care about whatsoever. So on paper, it sounds like really cool, but just from our past experience with the past 2 seasons, I'm not crazy about it. But with the final season, I'm really hoping they do some really cool stuff. This is our last chance to get my favorite idea, which would be, what if the other half of the universe survived the snap? I really hope they finally do that, and if they don't, I'll be very disappointed. But yeah, all in all, it, like back when What If the whole series was announced, it sounded really cool, but now that we've had a couple seasons, it's pretty disappointing. So with season 3, I'm gonna have to put it in the meh category. And next up, we have Marvel Zombies. And this is like a spin-off of one of the What If episodes, and it's a spin-off of one of the best What If episodes. So that means I am actually very excited for Marvel Zombies. And they've announced that it is gonna be very mature, which I'm excited for. I'm excited to see like blood and guts and people getting ripped apart and eaten alive and all of that. I'm really excited for that. And the one downside with this is, with the Marvel Zombies What If episode they did back in 2021, they zombified lots of the core Avengers. So with doing that, they kind of like, they're scratching at the barrel with what characters they can have as like the protagonists. So the characters we got are like lots of Phase 4 characters, which are fine, but like compared to like the past characters, you know, your main 6 Avengers and stuff like that, these new characters are definitely a step below them. So they kind of like shot themselves in the foot by zombifying the good characters, and now they're stuck with like the less good characters. So that's a little bit disappointing, but I don't know. I can live with it. So all in all, I'm still gonna put this in the good category. And next up, we have the 2 announced Avengers movies. I don't know if these were really D23. These were kind of like their own thing before D23, but either way, I'm gonna talk about them because, you know, they are big news. Anytime there's an Avengers movies, you know it's a big thing. So with these movies, you know, the big thing, of course, is Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom. And most people are pretty disappointed with this. And I definitely think like someone like Cillian Murphy could have played a great Dr. Doom, but I also think bringing Robert Downey Jr. back as like a multiversal what if Tony Stark became evil could be cool done right. Like certain characters like Spider-Man, seeing him and being like, Mr. Stark, why? And then like, it could be kind of cool, honestly. Like, I'm like the 1% that could actually like this. I think they could do it. And they are bringing back the Russo brothers, which, like Robert Downey Jr. coming back, is very, very, very safe. But I don't know, with Marvel lately, I feel like maybe safe is what we need, and they would do the best at tackling this Tony Stark Dr. Doom. So all in all, I'm like the 1% who's actually pretty excited, and I'm holding out hope because, you know, Captain America and Avengers, they are my bread and butter. So if they mess up either of them, I might actually like finally lose hope in the MCU. So I'm praying they don't mess these movies up.
This is gonna work, Steve.
I know it is. Because I don't know what I'm gonna do if it doesn't.
Also, like with the whole multiversal stuff in Secret Wars, it's interesting, but how are they gonna bring all of these characters that are rumored, like, you know, like bring back Hugh Jackman Wolverine, bring back Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, probably Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, all the Fox characters. How are they gonna like do all of that in one movie without making it like 4 hours long? I'm really confused about that whole aspect, how they're gonna tie all of these characters. But, you know, it's Avengers, it's Doctor Doom, it's the Russo brothers. I'm still excited for it. So I'm putting both of these movies in the good category. And then finally for Marvel, so I can finally catch a breath, we have Daredevil Born Again. And just a couple months ago, I finished watching season 2 of Daredevil. I watched all of season 3 of Daredevil, and I have come to the conclusion that Daredevil is an amazing series. Probably one of my favorite series of all time. Specifically, season 3 was amazing. Seeing like all the conspiracy stuff of like how many people Kingpin corrupted, and it was very emotional, and I think I even cried. And then the final episode where Daredevil's just pounding on Kingpin and says, "I beat you!
That this city rejected you! It beat you! I beat you!"
I loved all of that. So continuing this series in the MCU, or I guess it was always in the MCU, but like, you know, actually like tying it more into the MCU is very exciting. But also at the same time, I'm worried they're gonna like tarnish this thing I love so much. But they have gave me hope with some things by saying like it's gonna be more violent than like the original series, which is kind of unbelievable, but I'm really excited for that. I really hope they can do that. So yeah, on one hand, if they just make it as good as the original series, it's gonna be amazing. But I'm also worried they're gonna Disneyify it and have it goofy and stuff like that. But I'm praying they can have it as good as the original series, and I have hope for that. So this is gonna go in the good category, and possibly like the most hyped Marvel thing, which I wasn't expecting, but after watching the whole Daredevil series, I'm just super hyped to see more of Daredevil. So that is it for Marvel, and I need to take a breath. Like, oh my god, that's probably the most talking I've ever done in one whole take. And wrapping up this video, we have 2 miscellaneous movies with Tron Ares. And little disclosure, I have not seen the first 2 Tron movies, but I have a friend who's actually really into Tron, and anytime any of my friends are interested in seeing a movie and they like come to me to see a movie instead of like me dragging them along to a movie, it gets me really excited. So he's actually really into this movie, so I'm really into this movie, and I'm definitely gonna watch the first 2 before watching this. So the first 2 don't even have like amazing reviews, but just because taking friends to see this and having a friend be excited for this, I'm actually just gonna put this in the good category because a weight is lifted off of me that I'm not like forcing my friends to go see a movie for once. And then we have Avatar, what's it called? Fire and Ash. And my experience with the first 2 Avatar movies is basically they're beautiful works of art in terms of like CGI and what they're able to accomplish. But like once you watch them, like I have no need to like ever really watch them again. They're just like, oh, okay, that was really cool CGI and everything, but like I have no connection to this world and the characters and all of that and whatever. And also I have like a big grudge against Avatar because they're just like hogging James Cameron, and I want James Cameron to do unique stuff instead of like Avatar, because like, you know, I love Aliens, I love Titanic, I love the Terminator movies, and like Avatar is like one of my least favorite movies of his. So the fact that he's pumping out so many instead of like doing other stuff is pretty infuriating. So that's, yeah, really frustrating that he's probably gonna die before he can ever make an original movie again. I don't get how much money Avatar makes. Like, I don't know how they do it. I guess like they just look gorgeous and everyone feels the need to watch it at least once, like me. But like, you don't, like, there's no like big Avatar fans really. They just, you know, you watch it once, it looks cool, and then you like never watch it again. I think doing a whole fiery thing in the Avatar world is kind of cool, but yeah, I'm just not a big Avatar fan, and I have this personal grudge towards Avatar, so I'm gonna put it in the meh category. So that's the whole list. I'm sure there were some things that I have missed in this list, but if I missed it, then I just didn't really care about it too much. Like, I know there's like a Freaky Friday 2, but I haven't even seen the first one, and I don't even know if I will. Maybe I will eventually, but I have no need to watch the first one or the second one, so I'm not even gonna talk about that. That's the list. That was a lot to talk about. This is probably gonna be a super long video and a pain in the ass to edit together and everything. All in all, lots of people are negative towards Disney nowadays, but I still think there's lots of hope. So that's about it, and farewell.